Greetings everyone, it is DUCKVILLE here. I'm actually going to, I'm going to do something which I have not done pretty much ever, just because it sort of seemed a little bit weird to me, but I thought I would give it a shot anyway. Going to do a replay of my own. It's a particularly special replay which is from a game that I played yesterday. I was streaming for about 5 hours, and while that sometimes may sound like a little bit of a long streaming session, when you consider that I play Mech, a lot of my games go for over half an hour, so it actually was only like 15 games or something like that I played. So anyway, let's see what we got down on the bottom right hand side. Of course, it is me, and I don't know how to introduce myself, anything else than that. Up at the top left-hand side, we've got our Protoss player, iZeK. iZeK, blue Protoss player up here. I actually played this guy in the game before this, and I attempted like a Hellbat siege tank contain sort of thing on 2 bases. And then it didn't really work, because I did it really badly. And then he was being a douchebag about it, so I thought I'd let him know that there is no need for such thing. Anyway, what we're going to do with this replay, because obviously it kind of feels really weird to commentate your own game and say, here's me going across. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this sort of a little bit more like an analysis cast of the particular style that I've used in this game. Of course, as everyone knows, I do like to do a bit of mech, and this game was no exception. I've sort of been playing around with a few various styles of doing mech. It's sort of it's something that I haven't really mastered the opening, because in Wings of Liberty beta there was the particular way that everyone sort of opens up against Protoss is to sort of go for a reacted Rax, get a few Marines out, and then also have a factory pump out a couple of Widow Mines as well, because they're excellent for defense, and they of course they one-shot Oracles, which is also a really cool thing to have. So what we're going to do is we're just going to look over the basics of how I've decided. This is pretty much anytime I play, I sort of just, I kind of just sort of make things up on the spot and try and go very reactionary as to what is happening. So just sort of started up with the racks there. The gas went down on around about 14. This allows you to get at least it allows you to get 2 Marines out, and then by the time the second one's out, normally you have enough gas. Now we can see yet again, as I have alluded to in previous replays, that I am using a custom UI at the moment, of course, because it is just playing around with this thing, trying to find out what the best sort of UI is. So please, if you do have any suggestions or feedback based on what you want to see in a UI, please let me know in the comments, or feel free to tweet me or let me know in an email, these kinds of cool things. So anyway, got the reactor started up. 2 Marines just coming out. Just want to, you only need like a couple earlier on, because of course most Protoss players, they'll sort of skip a Zealot and then go for a couple of Stalkers right at the start to try and do some pressure. So you don't necessarily need to have like a large amount of Marines straight up right at the start. So what you can do after the reacted racks is put down a command center. Also, you get that factory up as quick as possible. If you skimp on the timing of your factory, like if your gas is a little bit late, or if you if you build I don't know, something else like random before you get the factory, you can be in a lot of trouble. Proxy, Stargate, Oracles are such a deadly thing, and if you don't have a Widow Mine or a large amount of Marines to defend against that, you can be in a whole bunch of trouble, which is why I think that some people still use Command Center first in this matchup. I don't think that's going to be alive for much longer. It's just such a risky thing to do, and unless your scouting is absolutely exemplary, and you're able to pick up exactly what your opponent is on, then it can be very hard to defend against the various pushes. And of course, Stalkers and Mothership Core can come across and can ruin your day as well. So it is a little bit of a risky strategy to do that kind of thing, which is why I don't particularly like to go for it. As I said, what I do like to do is get a few Marines out. We'll also get a Widow Mine going as well. Normally, a lot of Protoss players, when they sort of do come in with these Oracle attacks, they'll be very predictable in the path they'll take, because they want to come in, down the back, be some crazy ninja or something like that, and try and come in any of these directions. In this particular map, there are a couple of spots where you can utilize. One is this one, just right here, where I've put my Widow Mine there. This covers mostly just sort of this area here, and it pretty much just stops any sort of Oracle aggression that comes about. Of course, the other one, it can be, where is it? It's sort of around here. You can put another one down, because some people will try and sneak their way down the back here. So you do need to watch out for that one as well. So we are going to get that expansion floating down towards the natural. Of course, I didn't actually drop a mule because that was silly of me. And we've got a bunker going down along with a whole bunch of marines here. We've now got 9 marines out at the front, which is always good. Going to send a widow mine down to the back of that place as well, just to make sure that everything is all secure. So armory goes up. This is for if it was the push that I was like the previous push that I did in the game against the other guy, this is actually so you can get +1 weapons and start making hellbats, because they're like a key part of the particular contain that I was trying to do. But this time I actually wanted to get the drilling claws up really quickly for the mines, because I wanted to try and a particular mine style, like lots of mines. I've seen some people trying this kind of thing out, and a lot of people do it. So this guy, as I said, in the previous game we actually played the same sort of mech style, and I'm assuming that he knows that I would, well, you can sort of guess that it would happen again, because effectively my opening was exactly the same as in the previous game. So we do see the eBay going up at the back. Obviously got to get that up at a certain time to make sure that you do have enough detection for DTs, also for dealing with the oracles as well if you decide to start moving your widow mines around. And so with a couple of scans, I've been able to see that he does have that robo. We've got the 3 gates down as well. And this is, you've got to be careful of scanning, because sometimes this place up here can be a very common place to see the hidden tech and these kinds of things. So you do have to worry about that kind of thing. But as we can see, it looks as if he is just going to go for a very basic gateway style. But as is my my popular kind of way to play in TvP mech is to just play very comfortably, very sort of passively as well. Gonna make sure the turrets are up, got a couple of bunkers at the front, widow mines as well to defend, and I just generally like to sort of stay with a very passive sort of style to you know, augment the fact that Terran defense when you go into mech is very strong, as long as you are reading everything correctly and reacting at the appropriate times. So he's gonna send across an observer just here, just going to have a quick poke around. You can actually see that. I don't think I saw that when I was in game for quite a while, even though I was just poking about with these Hellions. And now this is a particular play which I have sort of brought forward from using mech in Wings of Liberty, is that you can do these sorts of, not necessarily run-bys, they're kind of more just little prodding and poking attacks where you try and actually move out and try and see if you can catch, you know, the probes that go out and try and, you know, build proxy pylons. You also want to see if you can scout out if the 3rd Nexus is coming along. But another important part is if you can snipe off some of these sentries. These guys are, of course, light, which means that they die very quickly to a large amount of Hellions. So I got in here, scout out the 3rd, and then he's taking down the rocks. I have no idea why he took that down. Obviously wants to take that 3rd base, but did get in, did take out one of the sentries. Not really worth it, though. Did lose a couple of those Hellions, but the main point is to just try and keep him back. And we also identified that he has quite a lot of Stalkers. So with the fact that there are a lot of Stalkers, obviously various threats can arise, and the fact that there could be, you know, the Blink Stalker tech. It is very common to see a lot of Protoss players try and dive in the back here, either using the Mothership Core or with an Observer to spot the high ground. So you do need to be very careful. And one thing which, while I was streaming, I can't remember who it was, but someone said you went a little bit overboard with the turrets. But I think in this matchup, you have to be prepared for pretty much everything, because when you're playing mech in TvP, if you lose the main army, it can pretty much be just, you know, you're dead, and it's very hard to come back from, which is why a lot of people find it a very difficult matchup to play, just because it is so it's so very fragile in terms of keeping your army alive and these kinds of things. So obviously, do need to keep an eye out for those sorts of things. +1 to weapons and armor on the way. Of course, a little bit slow, but not to worry, because you know, he's only just getting his now as well. So his is a little bit behind. He is going for the Colossus. Had a couple of scans to try and keep an eye on what is going on. We do see that he has those forges on the way. I believe I did see the Colossi at this point. No, but you sort of need to assume at this point. You need to use that imaginary player and say, all right, well, it's nearly the 15-minute mark. There definitely should be Colossus by this point. so I need to make sure that I am prepared for that. So we'll need to get out a couple of starports very soon. As we can see, those extra factories now being added on. We got a total of 5, which is pretty much your money sort of number for 2 bases. You should be able to produce pretty heavily. As we can see, my macro is quite a little bit behind here, just because I'm trying to, you know, see what I could do with Hellion attacks and these kinds of things. But it looks like these guys weren't able to get too much done, but they did scan out that Colossus. And of course, as we can see back at home, this guy now getting double Stargates. So we'll see what he is going to pull out with that. Hellbat's starting to come out. These guys are completely undervalued when it comes to mech. These they can tank up quite a lot. They soak up some of the damage of Stalkers. They can also, you know, be very useful in terms of disposing of Zealots and those kinds of things. So it is very good to add some of these in. Whether you add a lot or whether you add just a minimal amount to try and tank at the front is entirely up to you, of course. So it is important to keep that in mind. So we are a little bit supply blocked at the moment. Going to fix that up. 2 starports on the way. Going to get double reactor. Generally, if your opponent is going to go for Colossus, you should try and get at least, you know, that sort of... You don't need to go overboard. Like, unless the guy actually goes for a massive amount of Colossus, then you don't actually need... Like, I think the normal ratio of Vikings to Colossus is like... What is it? It's like 2.25 per Colossus or something like that. But I think when it comes to mech, because the tanks, of course, have a range of 13, and they outrange the Colossus, and they can do some extra damage to them, if you can target the Colossi down, then that's actually, that actually really helps out, and you don't necessarily need to build as many Vikings. However, of course, in this matchup now, where Protoss have the Void Rays, which do that bonus damage to Armored, and it just tears apart mech, you do need to be very careful about having enough to deal with the Void Rays, as well as dealing with the Colossi, as well as dealing with Tempest as well. So there's so many conditional things to when it comes to playing mech, which again is one of the factors as to why I think not too many people like to play mech, just because it is so difficult to play, so difficult to get right, especially in this matchup where if one thing goes wrong, it can be game over. So it is always important to keep these things in mind. Waiting on a +2 to armor upgrades, getting these turrets up at the back. Of course, this is a very common spot if you are going to play on this map with a little bit of mech. Be careful of Warp Prisms coming in through the backside here. They can be very, very damaging. Of course, you know, one of the key ways which a lot of Protoss players struggle with, and in fact, if anyone was watching WCS EU and saw Strelok and Kras doing some mech against Protoss, if you have a look at the actual matchups, they never abused the immobility of mech. Now, granted, in certain maps, and especially this one, which is why I like playing this one with mech, you can sort of draw a line. If we have a quick look on the minimap right now, I'm gonna show you what I mean. I believe it's, yeah. So you can sort of draw a line of, you know, no entry for your opponent. And if you look at it like this, we've now got turrets up the back, so they can't come in through the backside here. They can't really come in through the back end on this end either. And then, of course, you know, up at the top side, we've got a couple of turrets here. We've got a lot of mines prepared here, along with the bunkers, along with the tanks and the main forces. This is the kind of situation you want to be in as a mech player. Is that you want to say, I'm on 3 bases, I'm looking good, I've got to get my production up a little bit here, and start transitioning into the correct sort of composition to deal with what the Protoss has. So at the moment, as we can see, I've had a few scans to see what this guy is up to. We can see double Robo, double Stargate at the back, a few gates, not a huge amount, but a few gates there. Fleet Bacon is on the way, and he does have quite a few Immortals in here. So there are some of the... I actually was watching Strelok's games from the WCS EU. He seemed to just not get ghosts for quite a while, and I found that really interesting. Because these guys, the big Immortals here with their 100 shields, it blocks the tank shots, it blocks quite a lot of shots in fact, except for Widow Mines, which I find hilarious. These guys are a key factor in dealing with a mech Terran. So what you need to do is, of course, get a bunch of these. You need to get a bunch of the Void Rays as well. But all of these are very, very susceptible to an EMP. So if you can start getting some ghosts out, that is a very important part. And as we can see here, with the Ghost Academy down, 3 racks building ghosts at a time, if you can head up to around about that sort of 8 10, and then upwards from there. Anything above 10 is pretty much golden, and you're in a really nice spot if you have that many ghosts. So it is always important to try and get those ghosts out so that you can actually deal with the Protoss army, which is very, very threatening at this point with Void Rays out, with those prismatic alignment. Of course, these guys do... He doesn't actually really have too many upgrades right now, just 001 and 203 on the ground units at the moment. But if you can get some ghosts out to EMP the big blob of the Protoss units, and then use your Vikings to take down the Voids, Vikings to take down the Colossi, and then everything else just gets chewed up by tanks on the ground, then you're in a pretty good position. Now, the style that I was going for, as I mentioned earlier on, is to go for quite a lot of Widow Mines, to try and abuse the fact that with EMPs thrown down, and then, you know, the bonus on shield units. Is it shield units, or is it just the shields themselves? I don't actually... Might have to check that, but anyway. So I was thinking that perhaps the Widow Mines could be a really nice addition here. So we're up to 4 bases. He's obviously going for his 5th down on the bottom left-hand side. I've now got this 4th across to the right-hand side, and he is going to be able to scout this out with the DT just heading across now. And this is a point where he needs to really start making a move. While, of course, a Protoss on 5 bases is a very scary thing to behold, a Terran who has mech, and if it's utilized properly, can actually trade even better. So it's really important to keep that kind of thing in mind. And this is where I actually got completely caught out. EMP's nowhere near. In fact, the ghosts were way behind. As I said, I was completely caught out by this. So he sort of came through and pretty much wrecked every single thing. Now, normally at this sort of point, I would have said game's sort of over right about now, but I had enough Vikings up in the sky, and I thought, you know what, if I can keep this, if I can get rid of the Colossus, and then maybe save some of these SCVs, or at least keep the planetary alive for a while, then, you know, I could still be in this game. We got 5 factories inside the base. We got Ghost still coming out. We've still got 3 bases here with extra orbital commands, and things were looking pretty crappy right now. Like, I mean, it's 114 supply versus 146. He's going to start to rebuild some of these Void Rays, of course. These the Voids got absolutely annihilated after being EMP'd, and with the Vikings up in the air doing their 15 damage against them, they pretty much slaughtered all the Voids. So this guy's now down to just a small total of Immortals right now, and what we'll do, we'll just rekindle the forces. Now, as I said, completely caught out. I didn't actually see his units coming through this section here, so I wasn't really aware that he was going to come across. If so, I would have obviously burrowed the mines, got the tanks sieged up, got the Vikings and the Ghosts in position, but due to some really poor map awareness by me, I wasn't actually ready for that at all. So things have to sort of restart in terms of building the army back up again. As we can see, got a bunch of Hellbats on the way, some more tanks now popping out, and things sort of start to come together a little bit better now, as we can see with more Ghosts now popping out. As we said, a very key part of this army. 3-3 on the way, of course, a very useful upgrade. It should have been done at around about the 20-minute mark, but I was very slow in this game. I think this was like one of the last games that I played after 5 hours of playing, so I was a little bit worn out by this point. But the game still goes on. He's up to 5 bases with 82 harvesters. I've got 44, which is obviously a pretty dodgy amount. But when you consider that I've got a whole bunch of the mules, then of course that really helps out. So he's going to look to push in here. The Ghosts are out of position just a little bit. There we go. You need to sort of keep them linked up with the rest of the forces. But this is a very, very bad way to attack in here. Trying to come this way. We got turrets prepared for observers if we need to shoot them down. The Colossi also get shot by the turrets as well. Not to mention the Hellbats and the tanks were in a beautiful position there. So that was a little bit of a wasted attack there by him. But the big thing is that he's getting that air army back together. We've now got Void Rays. We've got these the Tempest as well, which don't actually do a huge amount of damage. There's no massive units in this force here, so you know, it's not always the best to have these, but they are very good once the battle cruisers start to come out, which is something that you always want to look for in late game mech TVPs. You want to have Ghost battle cruiser. If you can get that out, you can be in pretty damn good shape, because it takes quite a lot of strength of a Protoss to actually get their forces to take down that sort of army, because you get EMPs, the EMPs from the Ghosts, you get the battle cruisers doing a huge amount of damage as well, and you know, things can just really fall out of hand for the Protoss player there. So as we can see, his upgrades now up to 1, 2, 3. His units on the ground have 3, 2, 3. My mech units have now got 3, 3 on the ground and 3, 1 in the air. Of course, you want to try and get that that ship weapons upgrade going as quickly as you can when you are starting to deal with this Protoss air army. He's got a whole bunch of observers here, which is very clever as well. I want to stress for a Protoss player out there, if you don't have these observers here, you will most likely lose, because most mech players will actually get cloak on their ghost. I believe, I can't actually remember. Hang on, upgrades tab. I don't actually have it yet, but it does come along very soon. It's pretty much a great way of dealing with Protoss armies, is to cloak in. If you can find this clump up of units, throw down a few EMPs, and then you can just really start to decimate those forces, because with the shields gone, Tempests only have the 300 health, the Void Rays only have, 150. They can be shot down by a big salvo of rockets from the Vikings very, very quickly, especially when there are 19 Vikings out. So it is important to really get the cloak, and for a Protoss player, always have multiple observers in your forces if you are dealing with a mech player. So our Protoss iZeK is now up to 6 bases effectively. Obviously, only 3 of them really, or 4 of them are mining. So he is still up on me, of course. And now we can see he's looking to try and push in here. Ghost coming across, getting huge EMPs on absolutely everything there. You can see exactly what I mean right there, with the Vikings a little bit slow to get into the fight, but they do get there eventually. The Hellbats on the ground taking up some of the damage. You can see the rest of the ground army has been absolutely annihilated, taking iZeK down to 128 supply. And that is the power of well-positioned mech. If you've got your tanks in the right position, a few mines on the ground also help out, along with that large contingent of Vikings up in the sky as well. You can just, it looks like a very scary thing, that large Protoss army, but that was, in the space of about 10 seconds, that was reduced to just 4 Tempests. So I'd say a very important part of when you are playing mech. If you do, make sure you get those EMPs out. As you can see, found the 6th base up here. These mines got to get into position to start harassing that as well. I do know that this base is over here, but it is a little bit difficult at this point to go and harass. What I should have done was utilized the starports, get a couple of medevacs out, and actually just roam around and try and harass him, because as we can see, he doesn't actually really have any static defenses. There are no cannons around here, all these kinds of things. There's a couple of cannons down at this base here, but not really too much to defend. Of course, this one is completely exposed as well. And as we can see, with the Widowmine able to target down some pros, we are able to start chipping away at that probe count, and of course at that income count for the Protoss player. With the 4th base up and running, looking okay now, but things are we're now maxed out. We've got an army consisting of well, how many have we got? We got 3 Thors, we got 11 tanks, 15 Hellbats, and 9 Vikings, alongside the 5 Ghosts. Now, one issue which I did have here was that I really should have gotten rid of these Marines that are here. They should have been gotten rid of them way earlier. I don't actually know why they were still alive at this point. It's 31 minutes into the game. Don't need Marines. Probably could even start looking at getting rid of a couple of these SCVs. On 4 bases, you don't actually need 54 SCVs, because the main thing you need is a couple of orbital commands, and to make sure that you are prepared for dealing with the Protoss army. And you know, the SCVs, if you can get more tanks down, if you can get more Thors down, then you can be in a much better position. Now, one thing that we can see here is the Thors in the high impact payload mode. These guys do 30 damage at 10 range to air units, or to pretty much, yeah, any air units. So this is very important for late game when you are dealing with that Skytoss army. Not only is it really good for dealing with the Voids and the Tempests, but also for the Colossi as well. So you can see that he's going to start to slowly see jump with the Tempest able to see all that damage that they can do there. Vikings going to come in, have a quick little poke at some of those units there, but we'll force that back for the moment. So it's important to, as you can see here, got rid of those Marines finally, brought them across to the guys, to iZeK's 5th base down at the southern left-hand side here. And at this point, it was really worrying me that I was now down to just basically the 1 mining base, this one up here. And of course, with the with this base in a very awkward sort of position to take this. There's so many paths in to try and attack this. This is a very risky base to take, but effectively at this point you kind of have to. So it was either this one or take this one up here, but that's also a little bit exposed. It's kind of hard to sort of make the decision which one to attack into. So we did try and take the base down at the left-hand side. We've now got the big force of ghosts and tanks and hellbats, mines, doors, and Vikings all here. All together. We've obviously got to deal with a mostly air army. There's a total of 15 Void Rays up in the air, but if we can get the EMPs down, then we can see the Ghosts now just slowly moving into position here. They do get the EMPs off, there you go, but the Void Rays already powering through so many of those units up in the air here, but the Vikings finally able to take care of it, and again, another Protoss army just completely obliterated just due to the fact that EMP is pretty good, and of course the Vikings, these Thors here as well, look at them just mow through those Tempests just so quickly, blasting them apart. And that's like a really big turning point in this game here, I sort of feel, is that I was able to take out a huge amount of his forces here, and this allows me to move across. Now, his production, of course, is going to... This is where a lot of Protoss start to struggle against mech players, is they lose a lot... If they lose a lot of their army in a big fight there, they sort of go, oh my god, let's make 700 Zealots. Well, Zealots don't do that well against tanks. They also don't do too well against Hellbats, and... luckily for iZeK here, he was very, very prepared for this kind of thing, had 4 robos inside the main, 4 Stargates there as well, and just said, I'm going to make a whole bunch of the powerful units, the actual proper units that you do need to actually take out a mech army, and of course that consists of those Immortals and the Void Rays. So the one thing that you know, that was a little bit of a misconsideration for him is that carriers are also pretty decent as well. When there's no battle cruisers up in the air, for the Terran player, then carriers are also quite useful too. So sort of waiting to see if he is going to get those out, but if he is, it's still a little bit late right now. And with the destruction of 2 armies, this has allowed me to get a 5th and a 6th base up just to the top side here, and he's also now starting to fall down a little bit in his mining. We've now lost the 3rd base. There was a Widow Mine here that got in, snuck in, and was able to get some damage done. The natural, of course, is gone, and so basically we're... Interestingly, I'm actually ahead on the mining. Of course, that's mainly because of the mules, but this is the point where things, you know, after a long hard-fought slog between the early and the mid-game, things have started to turn around quite a bit here, and I'm sure at this point iZeK is sort of wondering, you know, if he's a little bit, if he's being a little bit overzealous with his attacks earlier on in the game. So, if you're a Protoss player wondering how am I meant to deal with these kinds of things, I think some tactics that can be utilized in Protoss versus Zerg should be taken into account. Void Rays with a mothership core, zip around the map, attack orbital commands. You can tear down turrets very quickly, especially when you've got, like, how many has he got? Like 10 or 13 out on the map. If you can zip around and just take down some of these command centers and then recall back home, then you in really good shape. And I think that if more players start to use mech, we might start to see that particular tactic come about. But as we can see, Thor count now really starting to increase for my units as well. We got 9 Thors out. We're up to 10 Vikings. Of course, the 7 Hellbats. We got 9 tanks. Ghost count is very low right now. This is one thing that I want to stress, is that the ghost count needs to be higher than 5. It needs to be, as we said before, up around 10 to 12, probably more than that as well. You need to throw down as many EMPs as you can before the Protoss army is able to move into a battle, because then, and only then, are you able to actually dispose of everything. Because if you don't EMP these Immortals, they will smash through everything, and it is a very, very disappointing thing to have to deal with that if you do. So the Thors, of course, are a big component of this army now. As I said earlier, looking towards Battlecruiser Ghosts is pretty much the late game you want, but at this point, when the guy is sort of he's spent a lot on these Void Rays, and we sort of mentioned it before, the Thors actually do so much damage in anti-air. I kind of wanted to try out just using just like mass Thors and these kinds of things, because they are pretty strong as well. So we'll see what happens. It looks like we will have a battle up at the top side here. Turret going down to block off that expansion there. Didn't want to let him have that one back again, because now, as we said before, his mining has really dipped down from where it was, and now with carriers starting to come into the mix, this is going to make things a little bit more hectic to do. So going to move into a little bit of a battle here. We've got the Ghost now coming in from the side with the cloak going down, but he does have a couple of observers, but the EMPs get off, and here we go. With the Vikings up in the air, he is able to, well, he does take out a lot of the Thors, and that's a big part here. With the tanks were actually very far back. That battle should have gone my way, but the tanks were way mispositioned there. And as we can see, Zealots now coming in. Zealots with 333 is something very annoying to try and deal with here. So he does bring in the Zealots. Vikings on the ground, a little bit of a misread by me. I thought that was pretty much all of the air forces, but as we can see, it is not. The key thing which I didn't do here was keep the Ghosts alive. Sort of really only were left with 3 of them, and now as we can see, the carrier force is going to start to come in here, where the carrier is very useful because with no Yamato cannon, they're actually very hard to kill. With the 150 shields and then the 300 health, of course it's the same as the Tempest, but with the fact that they can, if you micro them about, they're actually far more useful than a Tempest, at least in this stage of the game, I think. It's something that you need to be very worried about. And as we can see here, this should have been a planetary fortress. I have no idea why I made that an orbital command, because if it was a planetary, these sorts of zealot attacks would not be as effectual as they are. But as you can see, mining for me starting to come to a crawl. We've just got this one base here. Of course, this base on the left-hand side as well is still mining away, but he's also now got this in the top right. He's about to finish up on this base in the bottom left, so... oh, well, sort of the middle left, I should say. So things are starting to get into a very weird point right here. And I'm sure, as I said, there were a lot of people watching on the stream for this game. I'm sure this is a point where everyone was kind of like, you could be dead, I'm not actually sure. But I tell you what, from my perspective, I still had this base mining, a little bit left over at this one. And if this one stays secure, and I can keep an eye on this base here, then... you know, I've still got a decent chance. The one problem that I had to deal with was these various Zealot attacks, which this guy did, which was very annoying. Using up a lot of his minerals there instead of using some of that gas is a very useful tactic there, so it is clever that he was able to do that. Of course, for me, needed to get out more ghosts. We've currently got a count of 6 ghosts at the moment. The ground forces are actually pretty minimal right now too. And upon seeing that there are a lot of these zealot attacks coming through, I probably should have actually started to add more Hellbats in. But what we were doing, we were getting some more mines out. I wanted a little bit more space control. Wanted to be able to control these sorts of areas here. If I can hold him off at this point here, then I can take this base. I can also look towards attacking into this one as well. So it's that's why I got some of these mines out. I also got them for doing run-by attacks. It's kind of funny to think of a mine doing a run-by attack, but I'm pretty sure this... wait, did this get any damage done? I think it might have, but either way, these mines just going to try and run through here. I don't think he was prepared for this. Yeah, he did run away eventually, but this actually causes a delay in the mining. And of course, when we're sitting in a situation where he's basically, that is his only mining base right now, this Nexus still hasn't been established, that allows me to push across to the left-hand side, take out the cannon that was in the way, force a cancel on the Nexus, and at this point, he's not mining right now. So he does have a lot of minerals, but not much gas. So it is important to keep that in mind. But the carrier force is something that is getting a little bit annoying right now. So this is a choice that needed to be made. Do I start adding in more Vikings, or do I start adding in more Thors? I decided to go with the Viking idea because they're a little bit cheaper, of course. As you can see, I'm running a little bit low on minerals right now. No idea how in a mech game I've got such a ridiculous gas bank, but whatever. We've got, I did finish off the 3-3 upgrades for those oh, no, I didn't actually, my bad. Oh, there you go, it starts up right now. So we get the 3-3 for the Vikings, of course, a very useful upgrade to have, because you do need to have that on board when you are dealing with the carriers. And now, as we can see, basically the only mining going on is just over here. One thing again which I want to point out is that he's got those observers, but one thing which he hasn't had the entire game is a mothership core. Could you imagine if you can find out where the Terran is, you find out that his army is sort of over in this position here, quickly run down, get a quick attack in on this base here, dispose of that base as quickly as you can, and then recall back home to this base. Would have been game over at that point, but he didn't have any of these. He didn't have a mothership core at all. All that we've got on the ground right now is a whole bunch of zealots. We've got those 7, what is it? Yeah, 7 carriers up in the air, a couple of void rays as well. And that's actually pretty dangerous thing. Unless the EMPs are perfect, unless the Vikings are perfectly in position, this is actually a very hard sort of army to deal with. And as you can see, I have no idea what this Hellbat was doing. Does it really have to be that far away for it to not attack a zealot that's hitting a an orbital command? I have no idea what happened there. But anyway, he finally comes along. I had to manually click him onto that zealot to attack him. But looks like the attacks will commence on the top side of the map. Now this is a point where you're going to get in position here. I'm going to take out the ghost. Going to take out the observer, sorry. Got rid of one. But of course he has a bunch of other ones here in the rest of that fleet. So does come along, tanks, Thor's at the front tanking, which is a very bad idea right now. The Vikings finally getting in. The Ghost didn't really get a huge amount of EMPs off, but they finally did at the end. But it is a little bit too late. Of course, if the tanks on the ground go down, then they can't defend against the Zealots. But of course, the big threat is up in the air. Those carriers there with 333 do so much damage. It is so hard to deal with that kind of thing. And this is where things started to get a little bit hectic for me. Of course, we've got extra command centers across to the side, and losing that one wasn't a massive deal, but the big problem is dealing with all of these zealots here. So of course one of the best ways is to get some Hellbats out. So what we wanted to do was get some of these guys out, keep the Thors alive as long as possible, and you know, see if we can get enough Vikings out, because at this point for me, I know that this base is almost gone. He's barely mining at this point, and hardly has any gas, because I've kept an eye on this base across to the left hand side. So what we'll try and do, this was actually a terrible idea to try and attack into this base. I have no idea why I did that, but eventually finally lose that planetary fortress across on the right hand side of the map. The carriers is very, very strong right here with their 5 of them, with all their interceptors, and with the 333 they do a huge amount of damage. But as you can see, attack across the left hand side, just distracting him for a moment there. But Zealots coming in with a couple of cannons, cleaning that up. And the army units at the moment just sort of sitting at 2 Thors, 5 Vikings, and 7 Hellbats, because it is starting to get a very, very low in the production for me, just because the minerals is so low. We've got this base across on this side. I should have been over on that edge defending this base, but unfortunately I was not. Very slow to get across there with that one. Obviously got to try and fix it up in future. He's double my supply at the moment because of these carriers, and of course all those zealots on the ground. A couple more carriers coming into the fray now as well. And this is a hard position. Like, do I attack up this way and kill this base off, or do I go and save this one? I think the better decision would have been to try and come across and at least attempt to defend this base. I probably would have lost just because of all the carriers that are here, but you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. So we finally come across. We've got 9 Vikings here. Cannon goes down quickly. Kill those probes, that'd be pretty good, but not really able to. Just get a couple of probes there, taking him down to 39. One thing which I completely forgot about was there's a couple of mines. There's a mine down here, and there's 2 mines somewhere else. There's one here, and I don't know where the other one is. But losing this base across to the left-hand side, still got another couple of orbital commands here. Oh, there's the other mine just in there. And this is obviously starting to lead to a bit of a fantasy GG timing point here, where it starts to get a little bit sticky. But obviously it's very hard to deal with these zealots on the ground. Despite having the Hellbats there with their own 3/3 upgrades, they still it still takes a couple of shots to get rid of the zealots, and then you've got to deal with the carriers up in the sky. And with no ghosts, that is a very tall task to ask of a Mech TvP here in this situation. But as we can see, the Hellbats chewing up those zealots on the ground there, actually cleaning through them relatively easy here. And now the carriers are actually under a little bit of threat with all those Vikings up in the sky. We can see that he's trying to target some of them down. The Thors also doing a bit of targeting of their own, but unfortunately the carriers just do so much damage. And now, as we can see, with the Thors starting to fall down, that means that the carriers are going to start to win the battle here. We can see one Thor going down, another one as well, and with more zealots starting to come in, things start to really fall apart now. So production at the moment, he's got a Nexus on the way, and pretty much that's it right now. So not really too much going on, but I was able to re-secure this base up at the top right hand side. Still got a couple of command centers here that could be utilized, but he's just got so much right now. He's getting a bit mad too, so as you can see, But, you know, I thought, whatever, never give up, never surrender, as that little rabbit thing said in Lilac Wars. Or was it him? I don't know who it was. Maybe it was the rabbit. I don't know. Either way, never give up, never surrender. Got a couple of Hellbats out, trying to defend against all of this. And, you know, he's got 13 Zealots, 2 carriers, with no real production coming out because he's lacking in gas right now. So I figured if I could get a couple of, if this base goes undetected for a short time, which at the moment it has, then I could possibly get some Vikings out, deal with the carriers, and then maybe bring this game back. But obviously it's a very tall ask, considering he was able to get this base re-established on the right-hand side. I believe I did see... No, not yet. But obviously, you know, that's really the only base that he's going to be able to take. So, got 2 carriers. Where are the Zealots? 5 Zealots out now because I've killed off the rest of them. Widowmine across to the side. And, well, yeah, this is sort of the point where things start to get a little bit ridiculous, but, able to land an orbital command across to the side here. The 2 carriers now coming in. Of course, it is just 2 carriers. The Widowmine, of course, not really defending too well. Unfortunately, not able to dispose of those interceptors very quickly here. And basically, all I had to defend against that was a couple of these... of the Vikings there, and now as we can see with the orbital command going down, I probably should have tried to save that, at least try and move it away, but we still do have another one back inside the main. We've got that other one across to the third as well, and with 4 Hellbats coming across, I was able to disrupt the mining here, so things are still very tense right now. It's not exactly me dead. I've now got some Vikings out. We got 6 Vikings out, and that can deal with the 2 carriers. It can also deal with the 2 Void Rays if they're separated from the rest of the forces. And obviously, with the Hellbats disrupting this base here, if this Nexus can go down, that's pretty big as well, because then he's going to have to spend another 400 minerals getting another Nexus up so he can efficiently mine this gas here. And if he doesn't have the gas, he can't get any more of these high-powered units out. So, important things to consider here. Where is that other... Yeah, there it is. So it's the other orbital command now on the way, just floating across to the other side of the map. Looking at the resources lost, it is actually pretty close there. I mean, I've actually lost less units than him, and this is what I'm talking about with the efficiency of Mech, is that I've actually lost less than him, so... I'm actually ahead by quite a lot on how many he's lost. So, doing pretty well there, but I mean, obviously, 33 supply versus 63, and things are starting to get a little bit nasty right now with the 2 carries and the Void Rays. As long as these guys all stay together, then I don't think he would lose a fight against the Vikings there. There are 7, which is not too bad, but they don't really do too well. The Widowmines here may help out. This is pretty much what I was hoping for. I was looking at this point at saying, alright, if I can get this base up, if I can get a few more Vikings out, then I may be able to win this. I've got 1 SCV. 1 singular SCV. But the thing is, you need to get the Widowmines in the right position to defend against the carriers. You also need to have enough units to defend against... the Zealots on the ground, and you don't want the Widowmines to attack the Zealots either, because they just need to smash through the carriers or the Void Rays as quickly as possible. So, as you can see, we've only got these 6 Hellbats on the ground. I don't think, yeah, there's no capacity to build any more either. So, this is pretty much the final stand up here. We can see that we've got a lot of Zealots coming about, and pretty much this is where the game was decided, because these Widowmines were actually just completely disobedient, just not burrowing. I actually wanted them to burrow really quickly there, and hopefully I would have been able to take care of them. But as we can see, the Void Rays go down. The carriers, unfortunately, it was not targeting down the carriers properly, and with a blaze of glory, down to 6 supply. 1 more Void Ray comes about, and that is pretty much it. Alright, so there you go. For everyone who was asking, finally a game of me. I know it was a very long one, but hey, if you were able to watch, then I really appreciate that. And of course, for the Mech Terrans, that's a little bit of insight into how I like to play Mech Terran. And of course, you know, various tips for the Protoss players. I am still a little bit of a Protoss player as well, but yeah, that was generally pretty well done by iZeK there. A little late on the carriers, but I was not dropping properly. I should have been sort of attacking various bases properly and possibly taking the 4th a lot quicker than I did. But either way, it was a pretty cool game. If you want to see that game properly, like from my first person perspective, you can jump onto twitch.tv/DuckVilleLol and have a look at the VOD in there. I've made a highlight of it and you can go and have a look. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you next time. Stalkers are really great units at dealing with large amounts of tanks, but if they get in range of these Hellbats, even though the Hellbats do the bonus damage against light, they still do 20 damage against any sorts of units that get in their way. So looks like we'll have lucky